Okay, so we have officially started. I'd just like to say welcome everybody and thank you for coming along.
Is Iron Wolf a user?
Yes.
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 Okay.
So I'm just going to head
Does
straight
his
back to Unity where we left off last week. No, the week before last. I know last week was a bit intense. It was a bit heavy. We made a couple of shaders in Amplify Shader Editor, but we've got some nice results. If you remember, we created a triplanar shader and also one using purely the world position, just to give a kind of a mossy effect on the floor of the cave and have it gradually going up the side of the wall a little bit there. And then we created a triplanar shader for the rocks here, so we had some moss sitting on the top.
okay.
And the moss, using a triplanar shader, the moss, it doesn't depend on whereabouts the rock is in the world. It will always place the moss on the top of it. But because it's based on world coordinates, when I move the rock, the shader moves with it. So it is useful, but it's not very good for dynamic objects. If you're going to be animating anything moving around, I would recommend you bake this in Blender so you have a static texture on it and don't use a triplanar shader. But anyway, I made something last week after we finished the lesson, and it's over here. I made a quick chest, a bit of a pirate chest, and put it in and baked it. It's quite simple. I've got it here in Blender. Let's just move that over a bit. So you can see it's pretty low poly. We'll just isolate it there so you can see it
Are
properly.
we supposed to be seeing something on the screen right now?
Yes.
Yeah, I see a
Yes.
chest. Yes.
I see it
I'm
also.
not.
If
Oh,
you
dear.
if you don't see
Reset your
anything,
A-frame.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, exactly. Restart A-frame, and if that doesn't work, try clearing the cache and re-entering the room. It must just be the fact that the stream had started before you joined.
Okay, so I can rejoin the room and then it'll come in.
Yeah, it should do. Yeah, absolutely. And if
be-
that doesn't work, sometimes, very occasionally for me, neither of those work, and all I do is I restart the Banter client and come back in, and it fixes it.
Okay. When you say the A-frame, do you mean the Banter client or do you mean reloading the
Reload
this
A-frame. So yeah, you bring up your menu, and then you've got your cogwheel, and up on the right hand side there's a button that says Reload A-frame.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So hopefully that'll fix it for you. I'll try not to rush ahead too quickly. I'll give you a bit of time to get that fixed. So I'll just go over again. We made some rocks, but we didn't make a chest last week. I made one very quickly after the lesson, and I thought I'll throw that in there. I'll bake the lighting, and maybe next week, if people are interested, I'll take you through how I actually made the chest, and textured it, unwrapped it and textured it. You can see I've got the red bits are where the seams are. Exactly the same thing applies. It's just a case of cutting it up into pieces and flattening it out as if it was made out of paper. And I think what we'll probably do as well next week, if we have time, is I would like to put a quick animation on this lid and maybe add one of the Unity scripts to it and show you how you can click on it and open the lid, open and close the lid. I think that might be quite a nice thing to do.
Yes, that's a brilliant idea.
No problem. But this week we're not going to do that. This week we just want to get this cave finished. What I was going to do was scatter some of these rocks. If you remember, I just made a few rocks all the same, and we're just going to scatter them, resize them, rotate them a little bit so they look a bit different. You can't tell I'm reusing the same assets. Reusing assets is always preferable because that is going to vastly improve your performance. because it only has to download one mesh and just render that one mesh as many times as you want. So I'll start off by just duplicating this rock. Now there's a couple of ways you can duplicate stuff. You can either, in the hierarchy, you can right click and select duplicate, or in the viewport window you can just hit Control and D, and you can see here we've now got another copy of that rock. So I'm just going to move it somewhere, and I'll zoom in with the F key, and I'll probably stick it maybe here, and maybe even rotate it a little bit just to make it look a little bit different, maybe like that. It looks black, but that's just because the lighting hasn't been baked. What we can do is literally just get rid of the lighting for now so we can see stuff a bit better with the real-time lights. And we'll go back and we'll choose another rock. Any rock, pick a rock. I'll have that one. Control and D, and I'll move that somewhere as well. Ooh. Now then, don't think that was supposed to happen. Let me just check I'm in world space. No, I'm not, so we'll change it over to world space coordinates so it doesn't move up. And maybe stick a rock over here in this little bit. I'll not bother rotating that one. I'm happy enough where it is. And maybe this one. What you can do as well is just click on the Y up here to go into top-down orthographic view. Well, it's top-down view. It doesn't become orthographic view until you hit the white box, and then it does. And then you can scroll out and you can see exactly where you're putting stuff. So I might put another rock here next to this one. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Come on, I don't want overlays. I don't know how I got that up there now. Is it one of these? There we go. We'll just zoom in on that, and then I can move it a little bit. Maybe rotate it a bit. Something like that. That'll do. Out of orthographic view so I can fly along. And I think there's only 3 different rocks in here actually, so I can just reuse these ones now, can't I? So we'll grab this big one again. Control and D. Stick it over here and rotate it a bit. Yeah, something like that'll do. It's all about just trying to make things look unique, so you're not, as I say, reusing things over and over again. Can't remember which one I've done now. We'll grab this one. Maybe stick another one there. And then I think I might just grab those 3 if it'll let me. Those 3. Duplicate and drag. And then I can just rotate all of those a bit. If I zoom in, you can see what that was actually doing. It's rotating each one individually on an axis. And we can even move them around a bit, make them a little bit more random.
How did you bring your file in from Blender? Did you bring it as a .blend file or something else?
No, I exported it as an FBX. So what I like to use, you can either just file, export FBX, but there's a few things you need to do to make it work. Obviously, selected objects,
whoop.
mesh.
She'll be right back.
Whoa.
She exported herself as an FBX.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Oh
That's
no,
funny.
not again.
She doesn't even know. She still sees her
Practicing.
screen.
Yeah, she doesn't know that she's
He's
out.
showing you how to import
Uh-oh.
the
What
Now
am
the students go
FBX
crazy.
right
I'm
there.
confused. What am I doing that is
I'll message you.
confused? Okay. Hang on a sec. I just need to go and grab something.
Oh no. He's after me, guys.
Trying not to knock my guitar over in the process, right? Let's get my headphones back on.
I'm sorry, I missed the first class. What shader?
Oh, I've
network is
disappeared, have I?
Casey
Right,
using?
okay. Okay.
He's back.
Well, that was fun. I was wondering what you were saying. I was wondering why you're saying, oh, the screen's going crazy, and I didn't realise I'd gone. You should have just shouted up, you've crashed, you're back at the lobby. Because I could still hear you, okay?
WhatsApp.
All right.
Oh,
Jan
shush.
2 missed voice calls.
Yes, I know. Bob's tried to ring me, clearly. Hang on. Let's get that. Right. Okay, so where was I? I don't know anymore. Oh, yes, I was just showing how...
Yeah, I tried to warn you.
Yeah, I know.
You exported
That's the
yourself
law.
out of the world.
You're all misbehaving here.
So yeah, I exported this as an FBX. We made it out of metaballs during the first, well, no it wasn't, maybe the third lesson or something. We made this cave out of metaballs and converted it to a mesh, and flattened the bottom and unwrapped it, put a texture on it, and put it into Unity. As I say, two ways I would export is either from Blender's export menu, but you do need to make sure you choose selected objects only, or it'll export the entire world, including any cameras or lights or anything. Click mesh and make sure that you've got Z forward and Y up selected. The other thing I would do is just download machine tools, and it does everything for you. You literally just give it a name, choose where you want it, prepare and export selected, and it makes it perfect for Unity. So that's what we did. And last time, not last week, but the week before last, we created some rocks and threw them in there. And this is all I said I would do. We'll fling a few more rocks in, just try and fill the space up a bit. As I say, I've already created a chest, like a pirate chest type thing. Anything else that you can think of that you want to throw in here, I'm more than happy to model it, and you can see how I would do that. But for now, we're just going to stick a few rocks around the place, bake the lighting, bake the occlusion culling, and I'll show how to prepare all your assets for that correctly as well. And then we'll upload it and go and have a walk around. So I'm literally just grabbing, at the moment, groups of rocks, duplicating them, and just doing a bit of a random rotation so that they look kind of unique. And as I say, this is really just part of the normal optimization technique would be reuse your materials, reuse your shaders, reuse your meshes, reuse stuff as much as possible. If you have worlds that are made of where every object is a unique item, you're just going to run into more and more issues, because it's going to take more and more overheads to download and render every single different object and every single different material. So we'll just grab, we'll just grab a few of these, duplicate, drag them over here. And actually I quite like that arrangement. We'll just stick them there. That'll do. And hopefully, I can't remember, did we actually rescale the cave, can you remember? So it was the correct size for a person.
Yes.
I think we
Yes.
did.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think we did. So,
Armature and
Throw a capsule in there and see what the size of the capsule is.
well,
In
quite,
2 seconds.
yeah. That's what I was about to suggest. But I've got a basic memory of getting it right, so of resizing it. So let's just reset it to where it should be and move it up a bit. So that does actually look okay. I don't normally use capsules, you know, I normally use cylinders because at least I know 100% where the bottom is. And it's 1 metre tall, so normally you would move it up by 1/2 metre. I wonder if that's just because my my cave is a little bit higher up. Doesn't really matter. And if you remember, we'd made these a little bit lower so that you couldn't actually walk through them. You have to actually crouch to get through. So I'm hoping I haven't made them too low that you can't even get through by crouching. If I have, well, we'll just have to resize it again, won't we? And then that looks like it should be okay. It looks like it's probably around shoulder height or something like that. So we'll leave it at that. All we need to do is, we'll do the occlusion culling first, I think, and then we'll bake the lighting. So under rendering, where you would normally get your lighting tab, you've got an occlusion culling tab, and it should automatically appear here. Now, all your objects are going to be either an occluder or an occludee under normal circumstances, or both, except for the cavern. The cavern is one mesh, so we don't ever want that to be occluded. It can be an occluder, but it can't be the occludee, because if, for instance, you were standing behind a plane, you don't want it to occlude the walls behind it, because it's going to occlude the entire mesh. The whole cave wall would just disappear, and we don't want that. But what we do want is to, first of all, add a collider, otherwise we'll literally fall through the bottom of the world. And in this case we need to add a mesh collider, because it is one manifold object that we're standing inside. We've got the normals facing inwards, so we don't need to do any jiggery pokery to make it to work. Colliders work in the same way that visible normals do on an object. So the face you can see is the bit that you can't go through. I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you've ever brought in a plane into a world and you can see the material on one side of the plane but not on the other side of the plane, and you've got a collider on it, you can't walk through the side that you can see, but you can walk back through the side that you can't see. So this is why we're just going to add a mesh collider and nothing more. With the rocks, we've got a choice here. We could leave them as they are so you can just walk through them, or we can add colliders. Definitely wouldn't recommend mesh colliders for these because they're such basic shapes. We've got a choice of, we could add a sphere collider, which might work quite nice for a rock. In fact, I probably would go with a sphere collider for these. Or you can add box colliders, which is, we'll just hide that sphere one for now. Doesn't hide it, does it? we'll remove it. Box colliders, not so great. They just don't look right if you're standing on top of a rock and you go towards the edge and you're kind of floating in the air. So I would normally use a sphere. So I'm just going to stick that one back on there. And I think normally what I would do is just select all of the rocks. We'll just check that that one doesn't have two. I knew it would have. And we'll select all of these. I've only selected the first lot because I didn't want to include the chest, and it's easier just to do it in two parts than doing the old control and select thing. So they should all have colliders on them now. This thing, I'm not entirely sure. I think probably what we'll do is just add a box collider and adjust it. We'll just bring this bit in to about there and this bit down. Because I'm not really bothered about there being a collider on the lid. Chances are there's not enough space there for you to walk behind anyway. So I'll just leave that like that, and we'll just have a quick check through, select one or two of these every now and again, check that we've got colliders on them, and that'll do. So the next thing we'll want to do is, as I say, the cavern. At the moment, all I did for all of these, because all I was doing was baking the lighting, was ticked the contribute global illumination box, which is the same as ticking this section here under the static menu. So it's marked as static by simply clicking contribute GI. However, what we now need to do is have a think about all of your meshes and how they're going to react to if you were standing behind something or whatever. So we're always going to be inside the cave. We're never going to be outside the cave. And we don't, so it can be an occluder, because when we're in this part of the cave, we shouldn't be able to see any of the other rocks, and so we might as well save resources by not rendering them at all until they're in view. So we'll mark it as an occluder, but we'll not mark it as an occludee because we never want the cave walls to be occluded. As far as the rocks go, I would simply mark all of those as occludees. The chances are you're never going to be standing behind a rock so small. Even if you're crouching, you're going to be able to see over the top of them. So they're not going to be occluders. They'll never occlude anything. So for some reason, I've got one of those marked as an occluder. So I'll just untick that and I'll do all the other. In fact, I'll do the chest as well. They can be occludees. I haven't really got anything metallic in here, so I'm not going to bother with reflection probes. We'll probably use reflection probes in another project, which I kind of have an idea for. Even the chest here, I'm not going to apply any metallic or anything to it. I'm using a basic, can't even remember which material I used. Yeah, I literally just used the mobile unlit one, but it supports light maps, so it's really, really performant. So that's it. I'm just going to bake the occlusion now. We've marked them. We've literally flagged them to let the system know which is going to be an occluder and which is going to be an occludee. But now we have to bake it. And we'll do that simply by clicking on the tab and hitting the bake button. It's as quick as that. And it's done. And it creates a file that's literally 1.3 kilobytes in size. It's nothing. So, and that will really improve your performance. The more objects you have in a scene, the more stuff you can occlude from vision, occlude from rendering. If it's not within your field of vision, the better. Because all the system has to do is just render what you can see, and that's it, nothing else. So,
did you bake, when you said bake, did it bake lighting or did it just bake something else?
No, we've baked the occlusion. That's all this
so
is.
That's something else that gets baked. Okay.
Yes, yes. This is why I prefer Unity to A-frame. Well, it's not. The main reason is I'm familiar with Unity. I'm not familiar with A-frame. But A-frame doesn't support occlusion culling. And I always find that such a shame. But with Unity, I honestly would recommend you do this with everything, every world that you build, because you will notice an improvement in performance. So, before I bake the lighting, there's just one more thing I wanted to explain, to discuss, and that is the fact that we've got all of these reused meshes. Now, in the world this size with this many rocks, it doesn't really make much of a difference, so I'm not going to change anything in this instance. But in some worlds where you might have lots of an item, you would want to use a different method of rendering the items. And there's two main methods. We've got static batching, and in these, in fact, I'm probably going to turn on static batching, to be honest. I'll just select everything. I'll do the rocks first, and I'll explain what this is in a minute. Batching static, batching static. So when you do static batching, what Unity tries to do in order to improve performance is it will combine all of the meshes in your world into one big mesh and load that into memory as one big mesh, and then it will break it up into the separate meshes and render them. So it reduces your number, well, it reduces the load. It's not having to load in many different meshes and apply materials and render them. It doesn't do it all. It doesn't do a whole world. What it'll do is it'll separate stuff by material. So if you've got, say, 15 objects all using the same material, it'll try and combine all those 15 objects into one mesh in memory and apply the material once to it, and that's it. It does mean, however, that because the way I understand it is it will load it in as one big mesh, but then it has to render lots of separate meshes, and so you're actually keeping an extra big mesh in memory in order to do that. It does improve performance in most cases, but under certain circumstances, like where you have lots and lots of items that are repeated, there's another method which is often better, and I would usually recommend you try both and see which one gives you the best performance. The other method is known as GI instancing, and what that does is it loads in, like you might have, for instance, 50 rocks, all exactly the same rock. So it'll load in one rock and it's one mesh, but then you're given it a set of instructions to say, okay, now I want you to render that one mesh at these coordinates, this coordinate, this coordinate, this coordinate, until it's rendered so many instances of that one mesh, rather than loading in 50 versions of the same mesh into one huge mesh and then having to break it up. So it can seriously improve the amount of memory that you use, but it does have some drawbacks. So it's kind of like a bit of a balancing act. You've got to try and decide which is going to be the best in your particular situation. And as I say, if you're not sure, I would recommend upload a version, one using static batching and one using GI instancing, and then see which gives you the best performance and go with that. In order to get GI instancing work, it's ever so easy. You would just go find the material that you've used. In this case, it's this one, rocks. And under here, it says enable GPU instancing. You just tick it. But then, when you go back to your rock, you get a little error message. This renderer uses static batching and instance shaders. When the player's active, instancing is disabled. If you want instance shaders at runtime, disable static batching. So if you wanted to use the other method, the instancing, you just untick that and your little error will go away. In this instance, I'm not going to use instancing. Huh, see what I did there? We'll just tick that again, but I will use it in a future project. Probably the next one, as I say, we'll try and cover a few different topics in the next one. So the next thing I want to do is just to bake the lighting again. So I'm going to use Bakery for speed, because Unity's light mapper is just too slow. When we only have, well, we've got half an hour left basically. So I'm just going to use Bakery. I'm going to leave the texels per unit at 20. I've got it set to dominant direction. Don't even know if I really need that, but we'll render it. And just sit and have a chat while we wait for that to render. It won't take long. And while that's rendering, I'm thinking about other things that we could model next week, as well as doing the chest. I thought maybe a sword or something, a simple sword or an axe, or some treasure. If we do something like that, then we could add a metallic material to it and put a reflection probe in as well, which I think would be quite nice. So the bacon's finished. We'll just have a quick run around and make sure it's kind of okay. And we'll just have a look at the size as well. 0.6 megs, that's nothing. That's nothing. Make sure I haven't got any rocks floating in the air. Make sure my shadows are they're a little bit blocky, the shadows, but I've only got the texels set at 20. I can easily crank that up. We've got loads more scope because it's just a small, very small light map, but we'll leave it at that for now, because normally I would do it at a low resolution anyway and just crank the resolution up for the final bake when you're ready, when you're happy with it. Everything's going fine. It's a little bit jaggedy at the edges, some of these.
Where's your origin point?
My origin point is, I have not a clue, so I'm just going to stick in a cube again, and we'll just set it to the centre. There we go, right in the centre of that one with the chest. It's actually where that rock is. So that's where we should spawn. So hopefully, if I've done everything right, we've got the colliders in. Just double check that as a collider. Yes, it does. Got the colliders in, bake the occlusion cullen, bake the lighting, so we should just be ready to build and upload. So we'll just save it where it is. See, I'm still on lesson 3 here. We're actually on lesson 5, aren't we? We'll just build that. And I'll hop over to here. And just wait for that to build. Ooh, I don't know if you've picked, can you hear the fan going on me PC while it's building? I'll just see who's in here again. Ooh, look at that. Hello. It's funny seeing everyone waving.
Oh, I have a question. How well is the characters in the space going to be lit?
I haven't done any light
Do you have a
probes, so
directional
there
light
should.
in there?
No, there's
Oh,
no
you do have
real-time
light
lights in there at all. It's all baked. So the characters, because I haven't got any light probes in there, they should just be fully lit, basically. There'll be no...
Okay.
I'm going to, as I say, I didn't want to stick too much stuff in the first project, cover too much stuff to start with, but we will be covering light probes as well. Reflection probes and light probes, I think, are really important and so help to improve the atmosphere and realism of a scene. We're still baking. Not baking. Building. We're building. That's what we're doing. Goodness gracious. Let's just have a look at... Come on, is it going to let me see it? Probably not. Never
Now,
mind.
once you leave that screen, it's gone until
Yeah.
it finishes.
I know that's not the case with bakery. It's lovely. You can actually minimise the screen. There we go. That'll do. So we'll just drag those in. I didn't even look to see how big the builds were. 9 megs and 13 megs-ish. That's fine. Just get it set up in here.
So, sorry, I must have missed whenever you uploaded the, to the glitch thing that you're on right now. How did you get to that point?
Well, once you've
If you
built
don't
it,
mind.
you'll get a window pops up automatically with your Banter asset bundles. And just press Ctrl and A to select all and drag them over here. And it uploads them. That was it. That's all I've done. And then I've just copied the URLs for each and popped it into the correct place in the HTML file. And that's it, ready to go. So with a bit of luck, it should work. I'm thinking what I can do is maybe, if I've got space, maybe here, see if I can pull up a portal and we can hop in and try it out if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep. Sounds yum.
Okie dokie.
Did you save it? I didn't.
Sorry, what?
Did you save it?
Well, you don't need to with this.
Share. Sorry. Did you share? You don't need to share it. Yeah, you just click on share.
No, you
Yeah,
don't
so
need to
share,
do
yeah.
anything. That's it, done. You just paste in your
Okay.
URLs and it's done. So I've just got to remember the name. It's called Lisa's Dark Cave. So we'll just stick that in here, go to URL. Oh, it doesn't work on the keyboard with this one, does it? So I've got to do it bit by
Nope.
bit. Lisa's dash dark dash cave .glitch.me open portal. There we go.
Ooh.
So keep our fingers crossed that we don't fall through the floor. Ooh, look at that.
We are there.
We are here. Let's see if we can get through by crouching.
I think you can.
Ooh.
Ah, these are familiar rocks.
You should have put a surprise in here for us.
Did you add that
Yeah, we
dank
have
smell
dusty.
as well?
Thanks, Mel.
Well, we got all the way through it, so at least we can get through
We
the
need a
tunnels.
fire in here. We need a fire.
Yeah, maybe we'll add a fire next time. I don't know if we...
Hey, so don't you have the other one uploaded that you did before with the cave? You can show another cave that's possible.
What, you mean the old cave? The first cave I did for
Yeah.
Altspace? No, I haven't
Yeah.
uploaded it in here. I think
that's
the
better.
project file might be on my other PC. I'm not sure.
Ooh, okay.
But yeah, there we
I
go.
don't have to crouch. I can go through it without crouching. Is that bad or good?
Oh, no, Clyde.
I mean, it's good for me.
Oh,
I don't have
you
to
can look
crouch.
outside.
Yeah.
You go through it without crouching.
Well,
I don't know how to not
not
crouch.
really.
Yeah, you don't have to crouch.
But you bump your head.
Yeah, it
You
kind
bump
of
your head,
kind
though.
of forces
Yeah,
you to
forces
crouch
you.
anyway, doesn't it? The
Yeah,
Never
the
mind.
chest
Bump
looks
your head.
quite
I like
nice.
it.
Yeah.
I'm quite pleased with that for a low poly
Yeah,
chest.
Oh,
It's not
he
bad.
made it behind the door.
You must be
Or
muted, I
behind.
can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I was. So yeah,
That's the
I'm
big one,
making it
that's the big
now,
one.
and it says 2 minutes left, and it's been saying that for about 30 minutes.
I think that looks quite nice. I do like those shaders as well. It's worth spending the time
Hey, should we
making
take a
a
picture in
decent
here while we're
shader.
all in here? You want
I
to take a
like it.
picture of us?
Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Put it up on
Yeah.
the Discord.
Yeah,
Do we all be on this side so Lisa can take a picture?
yeah, good idea.
Hold on, I'll bend down in
I'll
front.
just get in front of these rocks.
I need to be in the back
I'm
because of
getting
my
pushed
wings.
around here.
Ouch!
Unless y'all want to be covered.
There.
Okay. Now, hang on a sec. I've got to figure out how to get my hands out the way. I need to be in... No, I don't need to be in easy 2D mode, do I?
If you
Press F.
look
There we
down
go.
and then, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Dusty, I think your head's in the rocks there. It looks a little bit odd.
You're blending in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just take another one quickly and get my hands out the way. Oh lordy.
Cheese.
Say cheese.
Yes, say
Cheese.
cheese. So we all
Ooh.
keep
La, la,
glowing,
pineapple.
glowing, la 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 la.
Yeah, la 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 la. From Old Space, I remember doing that. La 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 la.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
You did a good
Anyone
job.
else
It's awesome.
claustrophobic?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no.
Well, shall we head back to the classroom and because well, it's up to
Bring
you.
up the screen in here.
We've still got 50. I wish I could. We've still got 15 minutes left. I mean, we can still cover some other stuff if you want. Maybe even do light probes. That might be a nice idea as well. Oh, thank you for that.
Well,
Whoever pulled the portal up, that's handy. And look at that, I'm back in me spot. That's magic.
Quite brilliant how I end up in the same place every time I come in here.
It is, I know. I know. So, as I say, we've still got 15 minutes, so we'll just quickly throw in some light probes in here. Now, light probes does require you to rebake, but magic of bakery, it's super duper fast. All I would do is add in light probe group. Usually I would just reset it to the center again, and then you can see there's all these white dots. These white circles, simply, it's just an icon, the same as the light icon. It just tells you it's a light probe, but the yellow circles are the actual probes themselves, and they are usually, I think they're usually around about 2 meters apart, if I'm not mistaken, which is reasonable. I would just stick with that, with 2 meters. You can adjust it. But normally what I would do, the ideal thing to do is to spend time with every single shadow, and wherever it changes from light to dark, you'd place a light probe. But that just takes forever, and for a small scene like this, I honestly wouldn't bother. All I would do is, I'm going into
my
orthographic view. Click on this button to edit the light probes, and then I'd box select these. We can duplicate the selected probes and just, God, honestly, Lisa, we'll undo that because I've lost me. Box select, duplicate, and then try and click on the arrow. Just drag them up. You're trying to create a rough kind of grid. Duplicate them. Drag them there. We'll just duplicate those two. And these two. And then we could probably even do these two. Drag those out a bit. And again. And then this one, I'll just move it down a bit. So you just kind of adjust them to suit.
And what's that going to do for the scene?
Well, did you notice when we were in there, all our avatars were the same brightness. They weren't affected by the light in the scene at all. The light probes will make them react to the lighting as it is baked in the light map.
Don't they always also bake everything that's not static, basically? Like,
I'm not sure what you mean.
if you got objects that aren't, grabbable, so objects that aren't static, it'll also make them
Oh,
baked.
yes, it will. Anything that you've got animated in a scene, for instance, if you've got something flying around, yeah, it should affect those as well. Avatars are not static, so yeah, it's anything that's not static will be affected.
So,
just decide what
how
I'm
about
going to
on
do
outside scenes? Does the light probes work well or not? Or
light probes do work anywhere, absolutely anywhere.
okay.
Obviously, outside scenes tend to be quite big, and the larger your network of light probes, the more resources it's going to take anyway.
Okay.
I don't know if I've duplicated those.
Once they're baked, it doesn't. You don't have the performance hit, right?
Well, you do still have a performance hit, yeah, with light probes.
Okay.
But it's not massive. It's way better than using real-time lights. Bake your light maps, bake your light probes, and it'll perform better than just having real-time lights which are calculating the light intensity and the shadows of every avatar that's in the world and every object on the fly. So you can see I'm trying to maintain some kind of order here. But to be honest, it doesn't really make that much difference. It just works a bit better if you've got some kind of grid going.
So you don't create multiple groups, you're just doing it as one group.
A space this big, I would just use one group. I mean, it could well be that you only want light probes inside buildings and not outside, and you could have several buildings, in which case you would need different, separate groups.
Okay. All
right. Excuse me. Nearly done.
Are you trying to keep that 2 meter?
Roughly, yeah, if you can do. I mean, as long as they look like they're reasonably evenly spaced apart most of the area, it's good enough. I'm happy enough with that.
Yeah, because Elaine told me that one light map is equal to one. Well, sorry, one light probe is equal to one light map texel. No idea what that means.
Yeah,
that's what she told me.
Yeah,
sounded good, but no idea what it means.
Well, this is basic. This is your texel density. So basically, what it means is you have a unit in Unity, I believe, is a meter. So at this resolution, we've got 20 texels per meter squared. If you imagine a metre squared on the ground, one of these has 20 texels baked into it in the light map. So obviously the higher you go, the more dense your light map, the bigger your light map's going to be, the more resources it's going to take to render it.
Right.
So one light probe as one texel
isn't much.
It's not that
It's
bad.
nothing.
No.
A texel is what now?
Good question. I am never able to explain what a texel is. It's
Texture pixel.
Yeah, I mean it's not the same
as
a pixel, but that's probably the best way of thinking about it. Honestly, I look this up to find.
Control, right?
It is, yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
So what we're going to do now is we could just render the light probes, but you usually get really weird results. Once I've added light probes afterwards, I would just re-render everything and it'll render the light probes anyway, regardless. And then I shall show you, we'll just bring in an object and I'll move it around and you'll see how it's affected by the light probes. And that's what is going to happen to the avatars.
When it disappears on your screen. It's like, oops, did I save?
Well, the nice thing about bakery is it won't bake unless you save it anyway. It forces a save.
Oh, good.
Before it starts.
Good.
Yeah, so you never lose it. And it's nice and quick as well. Okay, so we'll bring in a sphere. We'll just reset it. There's our sphere. You can see it's not white. It's got a yellowish glow kind of look about it, and that's because our lights were off-white, kind of slightly yellowish. And when we move it around, we'll move it over here to where the shadow is. See if it's going to show.
What are those other spheres around it?
This is just to show that it's affected by light probes. It shows you which light probes are affecting the object. So as you move it, the dots, this is where your light probes are in world.
So where do you turn that feature on and off so it doesn't get in your way?
I would normally just click this button up here and it'll turn all of the icons off. It'll turn off the light probes, it'll turn off the light icons, and then you can even hit this grid one and get rid of the floor grid as well. And it's got rid of everything. Now if we go along the tunnel where it's a bit darker, you see how the sphere is darkening down. It's been affected by the intensity of the light.
And you don't need to do that in run mode, just in regular mode. It's fine.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, all I'm doing is just moving a sphere around because the light probes have been baked. Bring it out into the main cave and it's all light again. And this is exactly what's going to happen to the avatars. So if you like, we've got 6 minutes. Shall we quickly upload this one and go and check it out on our avatars as well?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just close that. I'll save. Build. Back to glitch, and I'll just delete these two.
What's the other one they're using? GitHub or something like that?
Yes, I haven't tried GitHub yet, but it does seem to be a lot more. I use GitHub for a lot of my Unity projects, just for keeping backups of the projects I'm working on, but I've never thought of using it to host the actual asset bundles.
Right.
But GitHub's just, I just think it's a better platform. It's not as easy, it's not as intuitive as Glitch, though. I can understand why this would be a choice for new people, because it's so easy just to do this. Just, you've got everything set up, you've got your folders set up and everything.
Plus, it's an editor.
It's so simple. Yeah. Okay. Right.
It should get easier in future. We're going to have SideQuest hosting in future for the worlds, so they'll just upload to our servers. That should hopefully be a one-click thing.
Oh, cool.
So it'll take away the whole having to drag and drop files around and deal with anything at all.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt it.
That's
Does
all
it
right.
still support the old stuff too at the at Glitch, or do you have to move it all over?
No, it'll still support anything else or whatever.
Oh, well,
We'll
okay.
just probably recommend it as the best option to avoid downtime, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, let's go and have a quick look and see how the light probes work. There we go, and look at that. I've got I've got light arms, I've got dark arms. Oh, it's exciting. I love it when light probes work.
Yep, they get dark. And light.
How are you baking it so quick?
The magic of
Bakery.
bakery. It's so much faster.
Bakery.
Good lord.
It is
Mine
the
takes like
best
days.
thing. It is a game changer. It really is.
I guess I need to get with the times. My computer I thought was new, but apparently not. It takes like 3 days to bake.
Have you got
Yeah.
NVIDIA graphics card?
What's that?
What
Well, that
graphics
answer
card
your
you got?
question.
What graphics card you got?
I could tell you the computer, but I don't know all the insides.
Fair enough.
Shall we take another picture now that we've got the light probes in, and stick that one up in the events thing?
We gotta put some people around the edge, around somewhere dark though, right?
Shall we go back to the pirate's chest and have people around that?
Yeah.
Okay. As I say, you can always echo, I don't know if I mentioned, you can always have a look at previous recordings of sessions as well, because on one of them I've covered bakery and using that, and in another one I covered Unity's built-in light mapper. I think it's a good comparison if you wanted to maybe have a look at them sometime. But yeah, I'll just stand here next to these rocks. And Shane's head sticking through, and Simon's head sticking through the lid of the chest.
Yep.
Okie dokie. Kurt, oh yeah, I was just going to ask Kurt if you can shuffle along. Right, everybody in, say cheese.
Noodles.
La 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 la.
Okay. Lovely, perfect. We're going to stick that up on the events channel very soon. But yeah, I think that's been quite a nice session today. I thought it would be nice to, after last session where, as I say, it was probably a bit intense and maybe I'd gone a bit too far ahead with the whole shaders thing. I thought we'll do something a bit easier today and get this place finished and uploaded. If you've got any ideas other than going through the modelling of the chest next week, I know we've already covered like UV unwrapping and texturing and stuff, but I think it'll be a good exercise to build a nice low poly chest and actually put that in practice. If you've got any other ideas what you'd like to see and hear, yes, echo.
Fire.
Yeah, we'll make a fire as well. We'll put a fire in, absolutely.
Can you make this world monk mode and have it grabbable?
I have not a clue how. You'll have to ask Shane how to do that, because I wouldn't know where to start.
What? Okay, we need to talk again.
Yeah.
See, we're sharing information, just like collabs.
Absolutely. That's it. That's the way to go.
I guess
Oh, 8 p.m. There we
to
go.
keep our heads,
Mm-hmm.
with our heads being all popped through the wall here, is there a way to prevent that, or you just have to like try to hide it?
Well, I wasn't aware
She'd
that was
probably have to
actually
make
going
it
to happen.
smaller.
What I could do is
Yeah.
just
You
make
can-
the whole
I
thing
mean, you can
bigger,
make it
because
bigger.
even in
Yeah.
2D it feels a bit claustrophobic, doesn't it? If I
But you
make
don't even
Right.
have to kneel down. It will kneel
No.
you down for you.
Exactly.
Mm.
I thought it would be fun to have tunnels that you needed to crouch to go through, but I think what I'll do is just increase the size of the
That's
whole
why I was
thing to give it
thinking-
a much more vast feel, and that you can just walk through
Make
these
it a
tunnels.
gorilla pin.
Yeah, we'll do that next week, I think. Just make everything bigger, because you know, it's not just a case of going through every object and increasing the size. There's a really handy way of increasing the size of everything and keeping it all in proportion
Just
and the exact
select
correct
everything.
distance apart and stuff as well. Handy little tips and tricks. I'll show you that next week.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Okay. Right, well, I'm going to stop the recording now. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you.
And I hope
Yes,
to
thank
see
you.
you all
Thank you for
next week. I
teaching.
hope you've learned something
Thank
this week. I
you.
know it's been quite an easy
Merci beaucoup.
lesson, but you're welcome. And we'll see you next week.